Hey guys, it's YodaJoe93. I'm sitting here in the car just waiting for Jake to get here so we can watch Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. I got here a little early, because early bird gets the worm. Got to get here as early as possible. And so I've had a video in the works that I wanted to talk to you guys about that we have not done in a long time. So as we talk about on our DC podcast Overtime, I want to discuss the kind of sore niche topic that we don't always talk about right now. So you guys know, I have been one of the biggest supporters of the MCU, and since Ella is Disney fanatic, she does qualify for this too because she does Disney, but she'll be more of a podcast voice in the background because she's enjoying some good sandwich right now. But, so, we gotta talk about why I believe, personally, that Marvel is failing, and it's failing its fans, and where did this start? What's the source of the problem? What's the root of the evil? Why do I think that as a company they're not succeeding anymore? And don't get me wrong, there's still things Marvel is making that are good. Like, I think their video game stuff are still pretty cool, except for a certain video game we're not going to talk about. But I think the new Spider-Man games, that when they've partnered with Sony, have been good. I think that when they teamed up with Sony to do the Spider-Verse stuff, even though it's mostly on Sony's directors, I think they did a phenomenal job doing it, which was cool with Spider-Verse. But obviously, things like Morbius and Kraven, that we don't talk about. But this is about the MCU, so the things that Disney puts out with their name on it. So, to do this video, this is going to be a very long video. So what I'm going to do is I want to explain to you guys just how much I love the MCU. So we're going to go through my MCU history, because we talk about Star Wars, we talk about DC, but I've talked a lot about my roots with Star Wars. You guys only know that I like some of the newer Marvel movies, and I like Winter Soldier, and I like No Way Home. But you guys don't know about my full background with Marvel, like where I started and why I'm so opinionated about why Marvel. I got my Black Panther hat on right now. Like, I have things to say about this. Alright, so let's get back to the basics. So, I was probably about maybe 10 to 11 years old when the first, let's see, 2008? No school? That would have been about 13. Okay, that would make sense. I was trying to think, in 2008, it would have been about 13, right? Does that sound...
2012, we were like 18.
Okay, so I would have been...
12.
2008. Sorry, I guess we're just trying to do some math real quick.
Around there.
Okay, yeah, so I would have been either 12 to 13. So I was at least I think I was in middle school. And so I saw, the first Iron Man came out when I was in middle school. And so I had grown up with Marvel cartoons, the X-Men cartoons, like going crazy. So I was loving that experience. I had such a fun time, and I was enjoying watching cartoons as a kid. I knew Spider-Man, I knew Captain America, I knew Iron Man, and I loved those characters. And I actually knew about Iron Man. I just want to say this for the record. I was into the Iron Man before you guys were into Iron Man, because you guys were all like, Iron Man's cool when Robert Downey Jr. got to play Iron Man. I was into Iron Man as a concept back in the comics, in the animated movies, in the cartoons. I was into Iron Man when it was cool. And it's still cool, don't get me wrong. Robert Downey Jr. did a remarkable job, and you couldn't have cast someone better for the role. But now I'm even more into Iron Man than I was. So yeah, it starts with Tony Stark. I loved Cap. I loved them all, right? I watched many Spider-Man cartoons. And so the MCU came out. And Iron Man changed the world, because we saw a superhero movie. Because you had Fox superhero movies, and and you had Sony, and some of them were fun. But the MCU just took it to another level. And when it started, we were starting the cinematic universe. Ever since that time, when Nick Fury came up to in the end credits scene, played by Samuel Jackson, he came up to Tony Stark. He said, "You're part of something bigger. The world is bigger." And from that moment on, he's like, "I'm here to talk to you guys about the Avengers Initiative." And for us, who were diehard comics, cartoon fans, we knew exactly what the Avengers Initiative was. And that meant that an Avengers movie was happening. And so, thus, the universe was born. And so then we entered Phase 1, and then we built up to this grand Avengers movie. And Phase 1 was a ride. Like, the first Thor movie was the only Thor movie we had, so we didn't have really anything to compare it by, but it was pretty fun. It was had some Shakespearean elements, it wasn't too bad. And then there were some weird things, but overall it was a pretty enjoyable experience. Then there was Incredible Hulk after Iron Man, which was very kind of had a cameo of Tony Stark, but it felt like for a while it felt like the black sheep of the MCU because not much was relevant. I mean, it was a different Hulk. We got Mark Ruffalo in the MCU instead of Edward Norton, so that was kind of a weird change. But now, as more Hulk stuff has appeared in the MCU, that movie's becoming more and more canon, more and more relevant. And I think it's still a pretty decent movie, despite it being a black sheep. I do not think Incredible Hulk is nearly as bad as some people would say it. It still is near the bottom. It still is near the bottom of my list because of the fact that it's not our main Hulk and it has some interesting choices, but it is still pretty good. And then the first Captain America movie. Some people might look at it and like, oh, you know, it's the old war propaganda stuff. It's not that interesting, but that was the birth of a hero, the story of the real first Avenger of the Avengers, because Captain America was around before Tony Stark was around. So even though Tony was offered the job, basically the job to be an Avenger was already given to Steve by Nick Fury in the present day very early on. So he recruited Steve first. And that's because Steve actually served in the military. And so this was such a cool movie. I love this movie. The romance between him and Peggy. Speaking of which, because we're going to go see Haley Atwell in Mission Impossible. It's so cool to have this feeling. And I really think that was a nice chemistry. Red Skull was great, played by Hugo Weaving. It was a fun movie. And then we segue into, at the end of the movie, Avengers happens. And it blows minds. It totally blows minds. We see Avengers, it goes crazy. And you just can't help but believe in this idea. Like, you fell in love. Phase 1 was great. We couldn't wait for Phase 2. Then we head into Phase 2, and we're building up this big set of movies. You know, we got a second Avengers movie on the way, so we get great movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the best MCU movies of all time. James Gunn gave us one of the most different MCU movies we ever got. It was comedy-filled, but there was so much heart packed into it. It just is a beautiful film. And then we got things like Iron Man 3. So you know, we got Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3, and you know, both of them turned out quite good. I know people hate on the twist, but I think that Iron Man 2 and 3 are solid. I think Iron Man 2 has some issues with its story, but Iron Man 2 is a fun time. It's got some fun stuff. And Iron Man 3, yeah, it's fun. It's a good movie. I mean, I don't know why people hate on it so much. I really enjoy it. And then you go over and you got one of the greatest MCU movies of all time came out in April when Phase 2 came out. And I remember seeing it in D-Box. If you guys don't know what D-Box was a way when the first Mall of America theater opened, you could sit in a chair, and it was like sitting on the Mystery Mind ride, where it was a big screen, and the chairs would rumble and shake, and they'd move. It was really cool. And so it was awesome, especially that movie, because because Winter Soldier was one of the best MCU movies where you got to see Cap just kicking ass. You had Winter Soldier, and it was so cool to see that experience happen, and nobody even imagined it could happen. And so when it did, people's minds were blown. It was going crazy, and I just couldn't believe that these things were happening. So it made me super happy. And so that was really cool. And then unfortunately we got Thor: The Dark World, one of the worst Thor movies that we thought to the time, because trust me, we're going to get into the really bad movies soon, because this is all leading up to a point. Like the MCU led to something, this is your build-up for the disaster that is coming. So we're just talking down the list, you know, where I was at the MCU from hype to where I am now, right? So we're building up. So yeah, so then we got that, and that was pretty interesting. And so then we got the first Ant-Man movie, which I adore. I think the first Ant-Man movie is a wonderful, pleasant movie. It is so nice and fun, and I couldn't believe how good it was. It really worked for me, and I couldn't believe how cool it was. Honestly, it stood out. You talking to Mom? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So it really stood out to me, and I really enjoyed it, and so that was really cool. And then we headed into Age of Ultron, and people hate on Age of Ultron because people don't like Joss Whedon. I don't like Joss Whedon either, okay? But Age of Ultron has some fun moments. James Spader is perfectly cast. Ultron was a little too jokey, but some of the other moments in the movie are quite good. There's some good setup. It leads into some good things. And then we're entering Phase 3, and we're getting into these great movies start coming out. So Phase 3 just comes out with the bangers, man, because Phase 3 was when we got Civil War, and so we got the first Ant-Man, and then we got Civil War, and we got Doctor Strange. First Doctor Strange was incredible, changed the world, couldn't believe it. We got Guardians 2 was on the pipeline as well, which was so good. So it was really awesome. Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then we got the beauty that was Avengers Infinity War, which is still one of the best Avengers movies ever made. Gave Thor this great emotional arc. We got to see the heroes lose, and it was mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. And I couldn't believe it. It was so incredible. And so I couldn't even believe that this was even a thing. So it was so mind-blowing and incredible. And so you had the Thor movie, which was cool, and then, or not the Thor movie, but yeah, so you got a great arc in there. And then we get right along we also had Captain Marvel after that in between, which was not amazing, but it had some fun moments. And then, heading off to Captain Marvel, we entered into Avengers Endgame. And Endgame, well, Black Panther was before Infinity War. Black Panther was a tribute to African actors and everyone everywhere. And it was so nice to see, and was such a great role. Chadwick Boseman crushed it. Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan, was fantastic. He had a huge comeback after starring as the Human Torch in Fantastic, which was great. And then we head into where things start to get really interesting. Then we get Endgame, and people are crying, and we lose our heroes, and it becomes this big thing. And so now we're at the tail end of Phase 3. And then we get into Spider-Man Far From Home, which was after Endgame, and it was still a pretty good film. It's got some issues, but overall I think it was a pretty good start. I don't think the MCU's lost their footing yet. And so we start heading into more and more movies after Endgame. We start getting TV shows, and so that's when the Moon Knights, that's when the Eternals, Black Widow, all these things start happening. And this is where we crash and burn, guys. Phase 4 just fails. It just falls flat on its face. Now, granted, I enjoyed Eternals for what it is. I liked Spider-Man No Way Home. I love Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was the best movie in Phase 4. I love Moon Knight. I loved Loki. I liked Hawkeye, but I had issues with it. What If was amazing, but the camel that got its back broken was the last straw for me. So She-Hulk. A lot of people crap on She-Hulk because it was funny and it was weird and whatever. But there were some weird, cringy things in it. But I was still, She-Hulk's fine. It's not bad. But what happened before She-Hulk, where I was starting to get really worried, is Miss Marvel was the show that broke everything for me, guys. Miss Marvel destroyed, because they made everything so cringy and just did not work. And She-Hulk did that too, but She-Hulk gave us Daredevil, and that was cool. So there was some cool moments. I enjoyed She-Hulk's humor. I thought it was fine, but there were some issues with it, of course. But my biggest problems, and I liked Werewolf by Night, so I was half and half, and Phase 4 didn't give me any hope. And then we get into and I was like, okay, Phase 4's over. It can't get worse, right? Oh, and I forgot, Multiverse of Madness was dog shit too. So yeah, so basically, if you talk about, think of the MCU like Fortnite wins. We got some really good wins, some really good victories, really good duos. Then we got some really bad shit, and we lose by all the sweats constantly. And the sweats are making shitty writing and using shitty weapons, and so they do. And so then when they do that, we get ruined by these movies. It's movies like Thor: Love and Thunder, shows like Miss Marvel, movies like Multiverse of Madness that really destroyed us. And so where we're at now, and then we head into Phase 5, and we get our biggest problems, guys. So we head into Phase 5, and we get Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, granted, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a fun movie. I thought when I first watched it, I thought it was fun. But the dialogue is so poorly bad. It's written all over the place. It's kind of just weird. But I actually was not where I was in problem. I expect that from Marvel. I expect it to be fun. And I was enjoying the fun ride for what it was. But where I lost it was they told us that they're centering this movie in this multiverse universe around Kang. But they made Kang look like an absolute joke. So Marvel has shown over the years, with Christian Bale playing Gore, they have no regard for their villains, which is where I draw the line with them. They don't care about sustaining the universe. They don't care about making good characters and having good arcs and having good villains. And so that's where the problem started to stem, which is really sad. And then we head into Secret Invasion. We're 3 episodes in, now 4 episodes. I haven't seen episode 4 yet, but I haven't been impressed, guys. So I really just have to tell you, the reason the MCU has failed is multiple failed projects, COVID concepts, all these bad things that have kind of unfortunately occurred. And do I think that the MCU could get their footing back? I hope so, because otherwise they wasted 11-year journey in the MCU, which is sad, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Also, another thing to look at, guys, is even though we got a great movie like Guardians 3, and Guardians 3 is one of the best newer Marvel movies next to Shang-Chi, but what happened is, here's the thing with Guardians 3. That all came from James Gunn. Marvel can't take any credit for that. James Gunn is a genius. He wanted to make a swan song for Marvel, and something that we got to talk about is, I remember when I used to go to when I used to see a Marvel movie, I remember when an Avengers movie was coming out, and I used to be like, oh, I gotta get my tickets on day one, let's go. The MCU isn't that anymore, guys. When tickets for the Marvels came out, people didn't go, oh yeah, I gotta get my tickets. No, they're gonna wait. They're gonna wait till they hear the reviews like opening day. So it's not a day one thing anymore, guys, and it's a sad day, an end of an era. But anyway, guys, these are my thoughts on why I believe Marvel's failing. The box office numbers aren't looking good for some of these movies. Unfortunately, Guardians suffered because other people didn't trust Marvel. And I don't trust Marvel. So I hope Marvel is able to make their fans happy again. Stop focusing on the general audience and strike a balance. Like Mr. Miyagi says, find the balance in things. Don't focus on the one group. Balance. You can appeal to the general audience, but remember, your comic book fans are what puts you on the map. They're the ones that love your work. The general audience, they come and see your movies. We read your social media posts. We get hyped for your movies. We promote your movies on YouTube. So, give us some love, guys. Appreciate that. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next one.